Welcome to the Trailhead from UltraSignup, where big adventures begin. Trail running is so much more than just a sport. It's a community, a culture, a way of seeing the world. On this show, we're not dissecting splits or debating shoe specs. We're here to get to the heart of it all, the people, the places, and the stories that speak to the soul of the sport. Join me, Zoe Rome, and my co-host, Brendan Leonard, as we'll bring you conversations with the everyday athletes, local legends, quirky characters, and creative minds who make trail running what it is. Messy, joyful, gritty, and deeply human. Because it's not just about chasing finish lines. It's about the friendships forged on long climbs, the lessons learned in the pain cave, and the weird, wild moments that remind us why this sport is about so much more than the miles. Quick thing before we get rolling. The Trailhead is part of the UltraSignup podcast network, alongside The Buzz with Buzz Burrell and Between Two Pines with Andy and Dom. If you like this one, the odds are you'll really like those too. Go and give them a follow. And while you're at it, follow or subscribe to the Trailhead wherever you're listening. That's actually the thing that helps most because you get notified when a new episode drops, and we get to keep making the show. If you've got a minute, leave us a written review on Apple Podcasts, hit a few of those stars on Spotify, or text an episode to a friend. Okay, on with the show. It's summer, which means the trails are open, the sun is out, and you are about to sweat through every single thing you own. I say this with love and respect. Summer running is the best kind of running, and also the kind that requires a lot of stuff. Thankfully, Running Warehouse has all of it. Need a vest so you can actually carry water on a 4-hour day? Got it. Socks that won't leave you with the kind of blisters you describe to strangers at parties? Check. A hat to keep the sun off your increasingly sun-damaged face? Done and done. Gels to prevent the bonk you can feel coming on around mile 18? Stocked. A shirt that actually breathes? Sure. More gels because, let's be honest, you're gonna need more gels? Also got it. Honestly, a frankly irresponsible number of gels. Running Warehouse is where I get basically everything. Fast shipping, a return policy run by actual humans, and enough selection that you never have to settle. Whether you're training for your first 50K or just trying to survive through July, got you head to extremely sweaty toe. Hit the link in our show notes to shop. Now, go get your summer.
So Zoe, when you listen to music, would you say you're like out of 10, how much are you listening to music typically?
Well, if it's a matter of volume, at 11 out of 10. I've been notified
I'm saying
by
attention. Attention.
Yes. Oh, okay. Attention, not just sheer volume.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say typically when I'm running, if I'm listening to music, it's less of an attention than like a vibe, and I'm really kind of more feeling it. Really closely listening to the lyrics or dissecting the bridge or the time signature or anything, but just sort of like being in it, absorbing the energy, the beats per minute. But I also am a fan of listening to podcasts and audiobooks, and those I do feel I give a good listen to. But
Okay.
what about you? I know you're not a big headphone guy, so I'm curious to get your take on this.
Yeah, I think my music is like cooking and eating. Well, cooking and eating, which I'm very distracted by a 3-year-old most of the time there.
Yeah.
And then probably working, which I'm mostly distracted to. So currently, maybe 4 out of 10, 5 out of 10 most days.
Yeah.
When I was younger, like, oh boy, when I was 15, 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10,
Yeah.
you know?
Listening to music generally or while running?
Generally. Yeah, I don't really listen. I don't listen to music while running, which is it's not like a position or anything. I just don't do it.
Just not what you do. It's okay. You're not, I actually don't know if you're left or right-handed, but we all come into the world the way that we do. Some of us really like to listen to Olivia Rodrigo while running, and some of us don't, and that's okay. And I accept you regardless.
Yeah. No, it's fine. Yeah. Our guest, from reading his most recent book today, Ben Ratliff, what out of 10, what would you say his attention level is to music while he runs?
15 out of 10.
Yeah,
I was pretty amazed, and I'll be honest that I picked up his book, Run the Song, thinking like, oh, fun, an unproblematic, easy read about jamming to music while running, and was pretty immediately blown away because this book is not that. It's so much more about attention and about listening, and really challenged me as a much more vibey music listener, particularly while running. There's not too much to dissect when it comes to the lyrical stylings of Carly Rae Jepsen. But this writer, the way that he unpacks and untangles music, I think is really different than anything else I had ever seen. And the way that he does it through running specifically was really, really interesting to me. So let's dive in.
I'm Ben Ratliff. I'm a music critic and a professor of writing at New York University, and I live in the Bronx, New York.
So you have been a runner for many, many years. I'm curious if we could start at the beginning of that particular strain of your story. When did running become a more consistent part of your life and then part of your critical practice?
Growing up, I really detested running, and it felt like punishment. I didn't feel particularly fast. It was a chore connected to several different sports that I played or felt that I was forced to play. So there was nothing about it that appealed to me or connected with me. And so it wasn't until I was, I don't know, in my early 40s, that a friend suggested that we just do it one morning. And I wasn't at home, so that made it a little easier. I was in some other place, and I was just willing to go along with the suggestion. And it didn't feel great, but there was something kind of interesting about it. I can't really put my finger on exactly what it was that made me sure that I was going to do it the next day, but I was sure that I was going to do it the next day. And then I think after the second day, I started to think, I see. It gets a little bit easier. And then after 2 weeks, I was sort of religious about it. And I found that I had a million ways to describe what I liked about it so much. And so ever since then, I've really been doing it. I mean, I think of myself as a daily runner, even though when it comes right down to it, there are days when I don't do it. But to me, it seems that that's okay. That as a cousin of mine putting it, not running is part of the practice.
One of my favorite descriptions of running comes to us from, I feel a little hesitant to quote this at like a professor of writing, but from BoJack Horseman, the Netflix TV show, where there's this like jogging baboon that says like, yeah, running, it gets easier every day. It gets a little easier. You have to do it every day, which is the hard part, but it does get easier.
It's funny. You'd think it would. I mean, a normal person, I guess, might think that would be the hard part or the sticking part. But it seems to me that the dailiness aspect of it is in a way the easiest part, or the part that makes the most direct sense. I have this thing to do every day. Sorry, I got to do this thing. Like it's this thing that I do, and you have nothing to do with it, and you can't reach me, and I just go do this thing. That's a very attractive thought to me, the version of me in my middle age.
Ben, can you talk a little bit about, this is in the book in several different pieces, but can you kind of talk about what type of runner you are? I think Zoe and I host this podcast, which is for basically a registration site for ultra marathons, and you'd think we would be maybe obsessed with times and training and all that, but we pride ourselves in not being about that. And I think you're kind of sort of an ideal guest for us. I mean, based on what I know but you're not a racer. You don't train. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah, I never, the idea of racing, training, or running marathons was just, it's never been appealing to me, and it still isn't. I imagine that I will at some point run a marathon length by myself. But I mean, I guess I'm not a goals-oriented person. I'm an obsession-oriented person. And I guess goals per se never really did anything for me. I suppose they can be helpful sort of guardrails or something. And I'm sure like any ultra marathoner is going to immediately tell me that this assumption is wrong. But I do think that once I do accomplish a really far out goal, there is a danger that I may never want to do it again. That I can essentially cross it off the list at that point, or my mysterious love for it will evaporate. Like I've done it, I've nailed it. So why don't like it's not that mysterious anymore. I don't know. How does that strike you? Is that foolish?
Oh, I feel like you'd be a ideal candidate for ultra marathons, though, because the thing I like about I've never run a marathon, which I feel like I skipped a step in running where I went right to ultras, which is very silly and would advise against. But I love, like, my favorite is the 100-mile distance, because there's always, like, it's this huge big thing. And then there's 9 million little steps along the way that are so fun to obsess over and tweak. But I think one of the reasons I like these really long events is they are really fun in and of themselves, but I'm also much more motivated by the daily training of it all. Like, if racing went away tomorrow, I'd be pretty content to just run a ton for no particular reason.
Well, that's encouraging. I mean, the only ultra marathoner I know has talked about a kind of sense derangement that she experiences, which also sounds attractive to me.
Yeah, we've got our best people on this doing PR for us, it sounds.
Well, I mean, in any case, I guess what running is for me is a way of figuring out every day how I feel and who I am and what I'm thinking about. And I trust myself that my love for it isn't going to go away. And it doesn't. It hasn't. I don't think it will. So all I'm trying to say is I appreciate that the way I do it sort of changes of its own accord. At the moment, I'm not really running all that much. I'm not really running for all that long. I'm still coming out. I experienced this winter as particularly hard, and I just haven't been running all that much. But the weather is just turning now and becoming really beautiful. So, and also I'm a teacher, and this has been the most difficult teaching year of my life. So I don't know. I'm so busy, but now that the teaching year is over as of like tomorrow, and everything could change, so
Ultra marathoning career commence.
I suppose.
So, we just read your book, Run the Song, which is a pretty, I think, quirky is maybe not the best word, but it's a little bit different than I think a lot of books I've either read in the realm of music criticism or running book, memoir adjacent running book. It brings together both your practice of criticism as an academic, as a professional writing about music, and as someone who likes to run, and how you sort of plugged those practices in together. Can you walk us through where that idea came to you? Because I don't know that it's 100% intuitive for a lot of folks.
The idea of like running has something to do with listening, etc.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, okay, sure. Okay, so I've been a runner for I'm not quite sure, 13, 14 years or something. I've also taught for nearly that long. And one of the classes that I teach is a class on writing about listening. And in this class, we consider all these different ways. Essentially, we're asking ourselves all over and over, what are we doing when we're listening? And what kind of activity is listening, and what's involved in it, and how does it work, and what does it imply? And so, like, I'm naturally trained to think that way, or I've trained myself to think that way. And during the pandemic, when so much changed about daily life, and many of us tended to kind of burrow into our obsessions or the things that we like to do, because all of a sudden there's more time for them. And like all of a sudden I could run in the middle of the street in the Bronx, so weird. And so my relationship with running changed a little bit. I was doing more of it. We were, like people were just doing more of a lot of things. I was doing more of it. And for the first time, I really took seriously the idea of listening as I ran, which I never had done before. And so I guess the insight that I had during the pandemic was, wow, if I really take seriously the act of listening while running, I can listen better than I ever have done before. And for somebody who has sort of listened professionally, for half of their lives, that seemed like a revelation. The basic idea was that I found that By being in motion physically through my own atmosphere, I began to understand on a deeper level the motion that resides within music, within any kind of music, really. And if I sat down later and tried to describe it in words, I could sort of merge two different kinds of experiences. I have come to believe that listening and running have a lot of things in common. One of them is that when you're listening, you're often in sort of three different time experiences at once. You're listening to the notes that are happening right now, but also you are aware of what has just happened in the music. You're aware of where it started. And also, since music is always a kind of system of expectation and reward, you're kind of aware of what's about to come. So you're both listening in the past, in the present, and in the future. And I find that with running, I'm sort of that way too. I'm thinking about where I started. I'm in the present, and I'm also thinking about where I'm going. And basically, in the experience of running, the physical atmosphere that I'm running through sort of unfolds itself to me gradually. And that's also what happens with music.
What your running practice or running habit, whatever we want to call it, seems to be solitary. You're in control of what you do. Maybe you're not sure what you're going to do every day when you go out, how far you're going to go, etc.
Yes.
Is your preferred listening experience also not in a group? Like I imagine the New York City Marathon would be your worst nightmare as a runner. Is like Coachella your worst nightmare as a listener? Do you prefer to be in solitude and like be able to just listen?
You're asking a really good question. I do take solitude seriously. And I like being alone, but no, it's not my worst nightmare to be at a music festival or at a club. In fact, for the most part, I really like it. I don't have an endless appetite for it, but I really like the experience of hearing music within a crowd. You started asking the question, do I prefer to run alone? And yes, I do. I can't say whether the marathon would be my worst nightmare. I can imagine a sense of solidarity and community that might feel fantastic. But I also feel that, well, I don't know. I mean, there's so much for me to process as I'm running, and it's so fascinating that I kind of don't want anyone else around. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
There's too much as it is. There's too much to process as it is. I guess maybe it could be the same as like going to a really truly fantastic exhibition at a museum or gallery or something where you are entranced by what you're seeing. I think I would rather have that experience alone. It's just this really comes down to personal preference.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not yes, I do feel like I'm a solitary runner, but I'm not an particularly solitary person.
You write about how for you, listening isn't passive. And I feel like increasingly in our culture, we're sort of like bombarded with this like ambient content, right? Background music is everywhere. Spotify these days is 90% AI generated, like chill trip hop for studying or whatever. How do you think that being physically active makes really attuning your attentiveness easier or different? How does the body do something for your ear? And how do you think we can maybe all use that to be a bit more, I mean, if not like present, attentive, and better listeners?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great. I love this. I love the line of that question. I mean, well, when I'm running, I'm thinking a lot. And I know that some runners say that they prefer not to think or they don't really think about much and they feel relieved by the burden of, not having to think and all that stuff. But I do think a lot and I do process a lot. And I'm sure that somehow the moving forward, the throwing myself forward is being echoed in some way by my thought patterns. My thoughts are also throwing themselves forward. And so I feel much more able to really think all kinds of pointed questions about whatever it is that I'm listening to like get into it much more deeply. And it doesn't really matter what kind of music it is. And so I guess anytime that you are asking really specific and deep questions about any piece of music, you are considering it as a specific and distinct thing. You're not just considering it as music, like you are thinking about it as like, what makes this distinct from anything else? Why is this thing different in any way from anything else? I guess I'm just as a function of the job that I've done for so long, I'm trained in description, and I think a lot about how would I describe this music that I'm listening to? What kinds of words would I put to it, such that it wouldn't be describing anything else, such that it would only be describing this one thing. So I think that's my answer to your question.
No, yeah.
So Ben,
And
you have
also,
go ahead.
I just want to say one more thing, which is that it was very exciting for me to discover that okay, so the structure of the book is just, one run, one piece of music. And most of the runs are around where I live in the Bronx. Sometimes they're up into Yonkers or down into Upper Manhattan. But essentially, I'm taking either one long piece of music or one sort of interconnected suite of music, even if that's like a long DJ set by a particular DJ or something. And I had an inkling or a theory that it really wasn't going to matter what the tempo of this music was, because when most people talk about listening and running, usually they're talking about the optimal tempo for running, a certain beat that will align with your natural speed and motivate you to run faster or keep running or whatever. My sense was like, no, that doesn't matter. That's stupid. I don't care. If music truly has some sort of life force within it that I can connect with on the move, it can be really, 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 really slow or really, really quiet. And that I was so gratified when that turned out to be true, that some of the slowest and quietest music I could find turned out to be some of the most enlivening music. So I guess among other things, I'm thinking about like for each piece of music I'm listening to, I'm thinking like, what are the qualities of this music and how is my body responding to it? And is it surprising me?
It's funny you mentioned the piece about how we find music motivational. The study that you referenced in your book is one of my favorites because like the researchers came in and they sort of thought that what people would be attracted to in music for running would just be like beats per minute, but the actual results of their study ended up being so much more nuanced and like came down to if people like innately found it motivating, if there was something that people connected to in the sound of it or even the specific lyrics beyond just like, is this kind of fast, which I find really fun that like you could theoretically be listening to like Beethoven, which is pretty up tempo, but maybe not my brand of up tempo while running, maybe. And if there's something you connect with that, like you'll find it motivating. My partner is a jazz musician and he listens to jazz, which I find to be not extremely motivating as a non-practitioner of the jazz arts. So maybe that goes some amount of way as to explaining his particular unhinged running listening habits.
Sounds like my kind of person.
Yeah. Ben, you have a deep background in jazz, and you're a critic for the New York Times for so long. I think many of us are maybe I'm just speaking for myself. I'm a middle-aged guy. I'm like finding less and less new music every year that resonates with me. And you seem to have resisted that partially because of your profession and partially just of your passion, your obsession with music. And I'm wondering if you can kind of walk us through, chapter 33, you include Ice Spice, which you're up by Yonkers, and maybe Ice Spice is one of the holy trinity of Yonkers musicians with Ella Fitzgerald and DMX. But as a non-typical Ice Spice fan, how did that chapter come about? And like, was there research? Did someone introduce you to, like, where did the music come from for that?
I'm pretty sure that a student introduced me to Ice Spice, but I mean, I also do pay attention to these things. Like I do pay attention to who the new rappers are, particularly around New York. And so I guess I heard Munch fairly early, and I was just sort of knocked out by it. I mean, what really appealed to me was her her flow. Talking about her is hard. It's hard to find the right words. There's a kind of like utterly unimpressed dryness, but also like speed and forcefulness about her delivery. So I don't know. I kind of went around in a daze for about a month, just thinking this is the voice for me right now. And so whenever that happens, I have to see how it goes, running with this person. It's like, everybody, all musicians I think implies some kind of forward movement, some sort of character in their forward movement. I think that if you sort of exercise the right kind of curiosity and hunger, it's not too hard to make your way to, it's harder than it used to be. Because in the past we had more sort of mainstream media entities that could help point us toward things, including the New York Times. And the Times still is of some help. It just doesn't have the volume of help that it used to. There are so many smart and interesting people writing about music these days who have their own Substacks. That's one way to find out. I really love and feel some kind of connection with the internet radio station NTS, which is based in London. And I often find myself going through the various NTS shows and seeing like these shows are so fascinating, and they're programmed by such absolute obsessives, and they go so deep, And so like I learn a lot that way. I'm just always looking for things that I don't yet know and trying to intentionally move toward it. It's getting harder. And I'll admit, I was just having this conversation with somebody last night. I haven't been obsessed with anything in quite a while. And that's scary, actually, to not have an obsession on the boil, to not
What
really.
what was the last thing you were obsessed with?
Oh, geez, what a great question.
We're just going to be mining you for music recommendations.
Well,
The only way to get new music in middle-aged, I am convinced, is to just host a podcast, and this is not a scalable solution.
No, you're right. It's ask people. That is the best way. I'm very happy to give you some recommendations. I'm not sure that I'm obsessed with any of these people, but okay. I was just thinking about this. What have I been listening to? I've been listening to a new Australian band called, they have a weird name, Station Model Violence. Very good, kind of post-punk. I've been listening to a new record by a jazz trumpeter named Adam O'Farrell. He has a group called Elephant, and it's really good. The pianist in that group is named Yvonne Rogers, and she has her own new solo piano record called Button Jam. It's great. And then I guess I get obsessed with old things. I mean, I spent a day listening to, this is something I mentioned in the book, Jimi Hendrix's various versions of the song Machine Gun, which were all recorded over the course of one night as 1969 turned into 1970. So there's like 4 different versions of this song, which is basically a 1-chord song. And they are different on macro levels and micro levels. That's something, that's like a very good couple of hours if you want to like think about that for a while.
I've seen, I feel like recently, a bunch of writing sort of talking about how like folks in Silicon Valley like are really putting forward like taste as sort of being this new like status symbol, particularly in the age of like algorithms and AI, as like one of the last things that we have to point to, potentially not always in the right ways, is like taste, like actual human cultivation and curation, and how a lot of times that is one of the best ways we have to sort of like signal who we are to other people. As a critic, I'm curious how you've gone as like a professional listener and someone who understands listening to music beyond the ways that I do. How do you think about cultivating taste, and like what do you pay attention to in yourself to think about like, do I like this? How am I responding to this?
Yeah, okay. It's funny when you talk about taste and the cultivation of taste, I can so easily see how that would become a kind of commodity or something that one could capitalize on. Like, I have good taste. And, if you play your cards right, I can help you have good taste too, or something like that. That the notion of good taste objectively exists.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? That idea really I find revolting. And I feel that so I guess I would come at it a different way, which is just to figure out what it is that you like, and to really be able to pinpoint it more and more closely until you can keep looking for those things that you like. Like, in a way, who really cares whether it's good, whether it codes as good taste or not to any given group? You know what I'm saying? So I guess, like, if anything, I've always tried to diverge from what is considered good taste in the things that I'm interested in. I don't know. I mean, I think that all the things I'm interested in are good. And I'm not talking about like guilty pleasures or anything. 'Cause
Yeah.
I don't need guilty pleasures.
You shouldn't have guilt, right, about them.
Yeah. Pleasure is
Sweet
not
pleasures.
guilty.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We're
But
a
I'm
pro
just
fun podcast.
Yeah, great. Good. I'm glad to be on it. But I mean, I just feel that if you can like things that aren't usually meant to be together in the same room,
Mm.
that's a very good thing. I think that's a very, very healthy thing. If you can like things that would seem to have absolutely nothing to do with each other, taste-wise, I think that's a really good.
It seems like curation more than anything too, right?
Yes.
Like, yeah.
Maybe. I suppose. I mean, but then again, isn't anything curation? Isn't, like, what you eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner curation? Like, I don't know. Where does it stop?
Yeah, we're getting deep, aren't we?
Yeah.
You know what? You know what I mean? But I mean,
Yeah.
I know that. Okay, I will say that when I started working at the New York Times, and it was explained to me what my job really was, I was given a real gift, because my job was to write about all music, just with the exception of classical music, because they had five critics covering only music from the classical tradition. And I think there were five covering all other music in the world.
Man, we used to make things in this country. We used to have print journalism about classical music.
That's
Man.
Yeah. They still exist. There still are some. But anyway, so, like,
Good.
think about that. 5 in classical and 5 for all other music. And so I was in the all other music in the world camp. And, like, they meant it. I mean, I was particularly brought on to cover jazz, because that was at the time, that was a gap. They needed somebody to do that. But other than that, I sort of made that maybe 60% of what I covered. And I really took it seriously, this idea of the way to do this job right is to on Tuesday night, go to the Village Vanguard and write about Johnny Griffin or whatever. On Wednesday night, go hear Pantera play metal. On Thursday, go to a Janet Jackson show at Madison Square Garden. On Saturday, go see Cuban music, whatever. Like, if that's what you're doing, then you're really doing it right. Of course, there was, like, an enormous learning curve for all of this, because all of these specific, I mean, you're writing for a paper that is, like, read by a lot of people, and read by a lot of people who know a lot of stuff. And so I put an awful lot of pressure on me to just, like, learn a lot, so that I wasn't talking out of utter foolishness. But if you can build in a certain amount of, well, I'm not an expert about this kind of thing into your writing until you feel comfortable, it'll work. And I have never wanted to be tagged as, like, you're the guy who writes about that. As soon as I feel that, I want to go the other way and write about something else.
Or Pantera coverage coming at you.
Sure. It's an uphill battle. This is this culture that we live in. I guess I'm talking about, like, US style capitalism really, really trains you to to specialize in something, you know, and to be utterly aligned with the thing that you do, so that people can sort of understand you and say, you're the person who does that. I don't know. I just think it's healthy to fight against that a little bit.
I feel like a lot of folks can sometimes use running as a type of distraction, right? Like, I think there can sort of be a fine line between, and I mean, I feel like I'm all over the place with this myself and my own running and listening. And I've definitely referred to my running as a practice, but not my listening so much, which I feel like is probably good awareness as a professional podcaster. And music can become something to help outrun or silence or turn the volume down on physical discomfort. What I really liked about Run the Song is it argues close to the opposite, that music can make you feel more present, more connected to what you're doing. I'm curious how you feel about that, I guess, tension, or how your practice sits with, I think, other people's, or, you know, even just for specifics, mine, of like, what do we risk when music just becomes a way of like tamping down on feelings or distracting from feelings rather than being an object of focus in and of itself?
Yeah. I talk about this a lot with my students because, all right, let me run this really facile theory by you. Tell me if you think it works. I have a feeling that the relationship that many people's relationship with music has changed over the last, let's say, 15 years, 10 to 15 years. And I think that it has to do with earphones. I mean, I think that because of certain advances in earphone technology, because of certain really popular earphone products that hit the market, I do think that many, many more people spend many, many more hours walking around with earphones in their ears. What are they listening to? Well, they may be listening to the same thing over and over. Same, you know, students often talk to me over the past 10 years. Students have often talked to me about what happens when they really like a song. They tend to act kind of obsessively and compulsively with it, so that it's really not unusual for them to listen to it like 50 times in a row, you know? So maybe that's what they're doing when they're walking around all day. But you know, that would imply a very close and deep relationship with music, which would seem to be a good thing. But, you know, maybe they're using music as a kind of a way to keep the world out. Maybe they're using it as a method of not having to look at or talk to strangers, or just as a different kind of white noise. I don't know, you know, like just something. It's like a TV that's on in a house, just to sort of keep you company, that isn't really doing anything for you.
Ambient content.
Ambient content, right. Yeah. So I mean, what can I say? It's not the worst use of music. You know, I mean, at least it's there, at least it's on, at least you seem to have some relationship with it. But I do. Well, I guess this brings me to my other point, which is that I think for a lot of people, yes, music can be soothing, you know, whatever, but also music can be really scary. I mean, I think that a lot of people experience certain kinds of music as very scary, very threatening.
How so? Can you be more specific about that?
I don't necessarily mean scary as in this is going to hurt me, but scary as in this music reminds me of an authority figure. This music is reminding me that my taste in music is bad. This music is trying to show me that I'm stupid. This music is making me anxious and nervous, and it's withholding things from me and setting me on edge, and I don't like it. Like, I hear a lot more of that too. So I guess this is all about a relationship with music where it basically becomes a comfort in one way or another, whether the comfort is just like white noise, or I want to hear my favorite tune 50 times in a row. And I guess I'm a little more interested in other reactions to music than this comforts me. I don't necessarily mean leaning into discomfort. I don't necessarily mean, you know, forcing yourself to listen to music that makes you want to throw up. But I do think about, like, well, what else could it be other than comforting and other than, I don't know, you know, nostalgia, sentimentality, those kind of self-reflexive emotions. Like, what else?
Feel bad to take like a great creative work and essentially make it like your Sonic Thunder shirt as an
Sure.
adult.
Well, so, we critics have this thing that we talk about a lot in our secret meetings, which is this idea called defamiliarization.
Mm.
And, it is this term that was introduced by a Russian literary critic like 100 years ago. And the idea is, and he said that Tolstoy was particularly good at it. If a writer can write about something that is really quite normal and familiar, like a horse, but describe it in such a way that it seems like, that it makes you think like, what the fuck? What is that thing? If you can defamiliarize a horse, what you're doing is you're able to see the horse much more intensely and closely. You're actually able to sort of see it for the first time. So, I mean, if you can think of ways to listen to even your favorite songs such that you're defamiliarizing them, well, then great, But if your normal pattern of listening is like, I only want to listen to what's truly familiar and I want it to stay familiar, I don't know. Just minimal returns is what
I have one last question for you, Ben. You've talked about this a little bit, and one of your chapters begins with a bit of what you talked about earphones and music that may or may have not been designed for earphones specifically. I'm wondering, it made me think of certain rap producers in the 90s who would take, I think, master tapes or something and somehow go and listen to them in the car to like see, like, this is the true test right here if it sounds good. I'm curious if you have a least favorite way to listen to music. My first thought goes to like via a stranger's smartphone speaker across from you on the train. That's one of my least favorite ways. Do you have a least favorite method of listening to music?
Let's see. Before I say I like them all, I need to really check if that's true. I do like hearing what comes out of people's phones on the subway, on trains and stuff, just because it's often something I don't know. I do like it coming out of people's cars. I recently went to Puerto Rico and I went into stores and restaurants and stuff where they're actually playing the radio, the terrestrial radio. I never hear that anymore in my experience of the United States. No one's ever listening to the radio. Anyway, I love that. Sometimes I don't like it when a restaurant projects the music that it's playing inside the restaurant outside to the street. I'm not too into that because it makes me think like, this just doesn't make sense. I understand this is an advertisement for the restaurant, like come in and hear this music, but often it'll be real shit music. So it's just sort of
come on in. We have bad taste, but the upside is it's very loud.
Exactly. It's polluting the street. There's a restaurant in my neighborhood that plays, I don't know if you're familiar with these very, very generic compilations of classic rock songs that have been recast bossa nova style. So
I don't know if I want to be familiar with that, actually.
I would like to defamiliarize myself with this preemptively.
So they were playing that out into the street, and I just felt like that's pollution. Is what that is. Like
it's like we're dads that are just hanging on by our fingertips to any semblance of cultural relevance.
Right.
Hey, age comes for us all. I get it.
Yes. Yeah. There's nothing to be afraid of, though.
Yeah. We're all going to find Ice Spice sooner or later. This was so fun to pick your brain about running and writing and music and listening.
Thanks, Zoe and Brendan. It's really good to talk to you.
This week's featured race is the FCA Endurance Race in Oakwood, Georgia. Maybe the most choose-your-own-adventure event on the calendar. Here's the setup. A flat, 1-mile paved loop around a leafy college campus in the North Georgia foothills, and you pick your distance. You could choose a breezy 5K or a 10K that detours onto the dirt pipeline and a stretch of cross-country trail, or a timed race where you just keep going. 2 hours, 4, 6, 12, or if you've genuinely lost your mind in the best possible way, the full 24 hours. Some of the longer durations even let you start at 6 p.m. and run straight into the night. Everything centers on Tent City, where you can set up camp, raid the aid stations, and do exactly as much or as little as you want. Walk, jog, or chase down the Hearn 100 buckle if you're feeling brave. I love all of those event options. There's truly something for everyone, and crewing this race is going to be a breeze. It happens on Saturday, June 6th, and you can register right up through race day. Sign up at UltraSignup.com. This week's featured race is the FCA Endurance Race in Oakwood, Georgia, maybe the most choose-your-own-adventure event on the calendar. Here's the setup. A flat, 1-mile paved loop around a leafy college campus in the North Georgia foothills, and you pick your distance. You could choose a breezy 5K or a 10K that detours onto the dirt pipeline and a stretch of cross-country trail, or a timed race where you just keep going. 2 hours, 4, 6, 12, or if you've genuinely lost your mind in the best possible way, the full 24 hours. Some of the longer durations even let you start at 6 p.m. and run straight into the night. Everything centers on Tent City, where you can set up camp, raid the aid stations, and do exactly as much or as little as you want. Walk, jog, or chase down the Hearn 100 buckle if you're feeling brave. I love all of those event options. There's truly something for everyone, and crewing this race is going to be a breeze. It happens on Saturday, June 6th, and you can register right up through race day. Sign up at UltraSignup.com. Thanks for joining us on the Trailhead. If you love this episode, leave us a review, share it with your trail crew, and make sure to subscribe so you never miss an adventure. Give us a follow on Instagram at TrailheadPod. And you can reach us anytime at trailhead@ultrasignup.com. We'd love to hear your stories, questions, guest ideas, or just to say hi. And don't forget to check out all of the shows in the Ultra Podcast Network. We're building something special, and it's just for you. We'll see you every other week, right here on the Trailhead.